Yes, I am ready.
The following is the agenda for the regular Borough Council meeting of the Borough of Compton Lakes Mayor and Council and Municipal Corporation in the County of Passaic. The meeting will begin at 7:30 p.m. on May 8, 2024, in the Municipal Building, 25 Lennox Avenue, Compton Lakes, consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act. The meeting will be open for public comments and shall be in accordance with terms and conditions of the Borough's Municipal Code and bylaws.
Please stand for a flag salute.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bless this mayor and council as they deliberate on the best of Compton Lakes. In conformance with the Open Public Meeting Law, Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this meeting setting forth the time, date, place, and purpose of this regular meeting through notice posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, mailed to all, have requested and paid for same, and published in Suburban Trends. Roll call, please.
Mayor Sarah.
Here.
Council President Vaughn.
Here.
Councilman Booth.
Here.
Councilwoman Kent.
Is excused.
Excuse for absent.
Absent.
Councilwoman Miller.
Here.
Councilwoman Howard.
Here.
Councilman Kent.
Here.
With us this evening is our Borough Attorney David Rupert and our Borough Administrator Michael Corrales.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to start with our certificate of appreciation, but before I invite him up and speak, for the people that don't know how much time and energy Dave has put into this town in the last 15 or 20 years, I'm involved 17 years here. He is always putting Compton Lakes first. I can tell you that right off the top. He works for a lot of different towns, doing a lot of different work, but at the end of the day, he's a homegrown Compton Lake guy who puts Compton Lakes first. And I can remember this, I think it was one of the hurricanes we had where a huge tree came down. It was probably 3 feet across. We called every place in the world to try to get it cut and removed. It was so busy, nobody could do it. Dave says, I think I can get that done. My machine could barely make it work, but he came and he got that tree out of the way and got those residents out of the street. So, it's those kind of things that we're gonna give him this appreciation for, but it's not just about what's going on now, it's about what's been going on for the last 20 years. So with that, Dave, would you please step up, bring anybody up you want with you?
Thank you. Very nice, kind words. Thank you.
Here, I'm gonna read to you.
And Al.
Is that all there? Come on. Hey, Rose?
That's true.
Sorry, doesn't know about this. Overdressed. It's a presentation to Dave Culp for maintaining and migrating the rivers in Compton Lakes. We extend our great gratitude and appreciation on behalf of our grateful community for your dedication service to the Borough of Compton Lakes. All those things I just talked about, on top of doing all our river work, okay, cleaning our rivers constantly. We're surrounded by 3 rivers. We're pulling that material out of the river almost on a weekly basis. Sometimes Dave has been doing that probably how long have you been doing that?
Since 2009.
2009. I can tell you, other towns have contacted me and said, who are you using to do your river work? We need to find somebody. They can't find anybody to do the work. They're hiring engineering firms to do it. So we're lucky to have you. I appreciate all the time and energy you put into that.
Thank you for the kind words. Thank you. Joint effort. Everybody pulled together, and I was the guy that actually did the work, but they did the legwork. He helped me. Billy worked with me right from the very beginning. So you have to have a support system in order to make this project work, and it all came together. And thank God the mayor stood behind us and kept this thing moving. And it needs to continue. We're going to keep these rivers clean, and I think we've solved some of the flooding in this town.
Knock on wood, let's knock on wood on that one.
Let's just see where it goes. But thank you very much.
Come tomorrow and you can pick it, okay?
Thank you very much.
Anybody who would like to leave before we start the rest of our meeting is more than welcome, but you're more than welcome to stay and listen to it. Okay, with that, we're going to have a presentation on our affordable housing. How, are you comfortable? You want to do it from the podium or sitting?
Is that okay?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Darlene Green. I am a planner with Colliers and
Slowly work out if you're leaving, guys. Thank you.
I am a planner with Colliers Engineering and Design. My associate,
I'm sorry.
my associate Kristen Russell asked me to come tonight because of the new legislation that has been recently adopted. But before I talk about the legislation, just a little bit of
Leave it open.
background.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So every town in the state has a constitutional obligation to provide affordable housing. That is not necessarily to build it, we have to provide a realistic opportunity to do so. And so we are right now in what is known as the third round of affordable housing. The first round started in the 80s, and the second round ran from 1983 to 1999, and then they changed the rounds to be 10-year periods instead of 6-year periods. So the third round was supposed to start in 1999 and end in 2009, but COA, the Council on Affordable Housing, could not adopt rules that could pass court scrutiny. And so they tried 3 times, and ultimately in 2015 there was a lawsuit that the Supreme Court of New Jersey issued a determination saying, COA, you've tried, but you failed repeatedly. And now we're 16 years into this round, so we are stripping you of your power, and we're returning the review and processing of affordable housing compliance back to the courts. And they gave towns until July of 2015 to file a declaratory judgment action. Based on the paperwork I've received, Pompton Lakes did that, so did 300 other some towns in the state, and they wound their way through the court process, which was not pleasant, and some towns did better than other towns. The process had its pitfalls because not everyone was going in front of the same judge. So here in Passaic County, more than likely you appeared in front of Judge Brogan. But if you were over in Morris County, we were actually visiting a judge in Sussex. On top of that, then you had different special masters. Think of them as sort of the judge's right-hand person to help them understand all of this. And you had different special masters depending on what vicinage you were in. So the same, 2 towns might actually have the same exact proposal. One town in vicinage A might be told, yep, that's no problem, that's fine. But the town in vicinage B would be told, no, you can't do that. Same proposal. So this process has had its flaws. Be that as it may, towns pushed through because that was the only option we were given. But because of these issues, the legislature has decided that we shouldn't repeat what we just did in this round, and instead they have adopted a new 75-page legislation for the 4th round, which will begin next year. However, there are some deadlines that begin this year. I prepared a memorandum which was distributed to your borough administrator. It provides a summary of the major changes. It certainly does not delineate all 75 pages of the changes that are proposed. If you need to fall asleep one night, start reading it, you'll be out by page 11. It's dense like a pound cake. So there are some good things in this legislation, and there are, I'd say, some not so good things in this legislation. One of the positives is that they are increasing the senior tax. So right now in this round, you can only use 25% of your obligation towards senior units. That's going to increase to 30% in the next round, which is a positive. So they've dissolved the Council on Affordable Housing, and instead of returning towns to court for processing of their plans, now they're creating a program. And no one knows yet who's going to be on the program, if they're actually going to be full-time employees, or you can even call the program if you have a question, but there's going to be a program to evaluate these plans and settle disputes on the obligations. They are changing the midpoint review process. So in this round, you had to submit a report, which I found on your website, that essentially said, here's what our mechanisms are, and here's where we're at in the status of implementing them. It was a 4-page report. You filed it with the court, you filed it with Fair Share Housing Center, you were done. In this 4th round, the midpoint will be in 2030, and it now is what I like to think of as a reopener. The way the legislation reads is that if you have a site that's in your housing plan that does not have preliminary site plan approval by the time the midpoint review occurs, anyone could come in and object to your plan and say, that site's not realistic. They've had 5 years to come in with a site plan approval and they haven't done it. So instead, I have a site over here, and I think it's better than their site. So that's why I'm calling it the reopener. So in 5 years, there's going to be a slew of activity for developers who didn't get into housing plans initially, but are going to try and wiggle their way into them at the midpoint review. Another change is if you miss certain deadlines that are outlined in this legislation, it is an automatic loss of immunity. That is not the way it works currently. You cannot automatically lose immunity. If someone feels that you are not acting in good faith currently and you should lose immunity, they have to file a court proceeding. You have to go in front of a judge. Both sides tell their story, and the judge makes a determination on whether you lose immunity or not. It's not instant. So that is, I think, a detriment to towns because, for example, let's say there's a big snowstorm the night you're supposed to meet, and you can't muster a quorum. If you miss that deadline, automatic loss of immunity for something that's out of your hands. Another change, which does not affect you, I believe, is a reference now to the Highlands Council. And based on what I saw on the Highlands website today, do not believe that you have opted in.
We're not.
Okay, so then that will not impact you. A new caveat is a requirement to have a consistency determination with the state plan. The state plan is sat dormant for over a decade, but now all of a sudden, the state planning agency is feverishly working on a new state plan. That's supposed to be issued in June, and that's something that you should certainly keep your eyes on. There is mapping that's already available that you can review. I can tell you in one of my towns, it is extremely wrong, and it's classified swampland as developable land, and because you have a lot of streams and a lake, it's worrisome that they could have miscategorized some of your land as well. So that's an important item to keep abreast of because they're moving sort of on these parallel tracks at the same time. Towns are still allowed to seek vacant land adjustment, so if you don't have sufficient vacant and developable land to meet your entire obligation, you are allowed to seek a reduction of your obligation. That's still in these rules, but there's a new caveat. If you seek a reduction, and let's say your obligation is 100, you now have to come up with a plan to meet 25% of that reduced number. So if you were able to reduce your number down to 0 through a vacant land adjustment, the rules now say, well, that's nice, but you still owe us 25 affordable units. So I think part of this is a recognition that a lot of towns went in under a vacant land adjustment, rightfully so, but of course there's a magic quota that they want produced, and if everyone receives a vacant land adjustment, the state's not going to meet that quota. They are now crediting transitional housing, which has never been done before. Things that would fall under this category include homeless shelters, substance abuse rehabilitation facilities, short-term facilities. Those kinds of items now would be credit-worthy as long as they meet the micro requirements. And another radical change is the bonus structure. So in this round, towns are eligible to receive a rental bonus credit. So if you produce an affordable rental unit that was not restricted for seniors, let's say, you would receive a full bonus credit. That bonus credit is now eliminated, and it's been replaced with a host of other bonuses. And when you read it, it sounds like, oh, this is a good thing. I would tell you, it's not, because the overwhelming majority of these bonuses are now half of a bonus, not a whole bonus. Which means for some communities, they're now going to actually have to build more affordable housing units to generate the same number of overall credits. Of course, this 75-page rule book doesn't actually tell you everything you need to know to go from the start to the finish of affordable housing. The rules say, well, you can still rely on the existing rules to the extent that they're not invalidated. But at the end, there's 24 references that don't tell you what they are, that says, oh, but these things over here are repealed. You have to go and figure out what they are. So now, folks who are going to be preparing plans are going to have to look at the prior round rules, the third round rules, the UHAC rules, and this 75-page document to try to figure out how to navigate this new process. The last thing that I would note is that the length of deed restrictions have also been amended. So right now, today, whether it's a sale affordable unit or a rental affordable unit, they all have a 30-year deed restriction. This new legislation modifies that and is now requiring rental affordables to have a 40-year deed restriction. So it's essentially showing the state's preference now towards sale as opposed to rental, but sale has a whole host of other issues that towns have to be mindful of. So on page 2 of the letter, we've outlined the deadlines, and one of them is coming up in 41 days, and I have a calendar that I keep reminding all of my towns about, because I don't want someone calling me the day before and going, oh, Darlene, oh my gosh, tomorrow's the deadline, what do we do? Well, it's too late. So the first deadline is June 18th, and that's when every town with a trust fund, which I'm assuming you have one because I read in your housing plan about payment in lieu, so I'm assuming there's a trust fund somewhere here at Town Hall where all the affordable housing fees are deposited. And by June 18th, towns have to provide a detailed accounting of all the non-residential fees that have been deposited in that account, and then on all the expenditures related to non-residential fees. Now, I can tell you, all the towns I represent, when you write checks out of the trust fund, you don't say, oh, well, that check was because it was a non-residential fee, and this check is because it was a residential fee. No one keeps their books like that, and we were never, ever required to. So, to me, that's just a fact that shows the author of this legislation, or the authors of this legislation, don't really know how trust funds work, because that's not how you account for your expenditures. So that's the first deadline, and then in September you have to report on the residential development fees coming in and going back out of your trust fund. Also on September 16th, they want a voluminous amount of information on construction starts. So those would be sites that have commenced construction that have affordable housing units but don't yet have COs and occupants. They also want a mountain of information on existing units, which I think, looking at your housing plan, would not be too terribly difficult here compared to some other towns where there are over 1,000 affordable units on the ground. They want to know address, block and lot, tenure, whether or not it's restricted to seniors, bedroom distribution, income distribution level, the start and stop of expiration dates for deeds. And I will tell you many times, the deeds don't actually tell you the exact start dates because it typically says upon occupancy. So now you're digging back to records from the 90s or the 80s to try to figure out when were these units occupied. That is going to be quite the task for towns to undertake, and that's why part of the reason we wanted to issue this letter as soon as possible so towns wouldn't be running around at the 11th hour. The good news is these 3 initial deadlines are not what I call the shotgun deadlines that result in any loss of automatic immunity. That comes later. By October 20th, DCA, who is now tasked with coming up with the obligations, is supposed to produce a report. Don't hold your breath on that. So that report would tell you what your rehabilitation obligation is, as well as what your 4th round number is. But be reminded, so now you're going to have a 4-part obligation. A rehab obligation, any prior round obligation that you haven't satisfied, any 3rd round obligation you haven't satisfied, and now a 4th round obligation that you have to address. If DCA does not publish the numbers by their deadline, none of the other deadlines get pushed back. There is nothing in this legislation that takes into account that DCA may not make their deadline, which is extremely concerning as someone who 99% of my work is representing municipalities. But that's the way this legislation reads. Now, why is all this important? Because on January 31st, this entity is tasked with its first policy decision. On that date, every governing body is supposed to adopt a binding resolution outlining its rehabilitation obligation and its 4th round obligation. You can either accept the numbers that DCA issues, assuming they issue them in time, or you can have your own number, but you can't just say, well, it's 0 because I said so. You have to have some legitimate rationale backing up why your number is different than DCA's numbers. Now, we don't know, is DCA just going to publish a report that lists every town's name and has their numbers, or are they going to provide the 40-plus step calculation that arrived at your number? If we don't get the backup data, it's going to be very difficult to dispute the DCA number. So I expect there to be a flurry of activity when and if DCA issues their number. The January 31st date is the first shotgun date. So if a town misses that date, you lose immunity. So the day after that, someone could file a builder remedy lawsuit to erase your zoning. All they have to do, or I should say, The status for a builder remedy lawsuit is they either have to own the land or they can be a contract purchaser. So that's a good caveat to remember, is they don't have to actually own the land. They just need to be a contract purchaser to institute that builder remedy lawsuit. After the towns file their binding resolution, anyone, whether it's a developer, Fair Share Housing Center, John Smith, member of the public, can file a challenge to the number. That has to be filed by February 28th. Now, they also have to say why they don't think your number is accurate. They can't just say, I don't like Pompton Lake's number. And that's when the magical program will start evaluating these challenges. Now, let's say, for example, you get lucky and no one challenges your number, whatever it is that you have selected. That means on March 1st, your obligation is established by default. So you can go about your merry way. Your number is now etched in stone. The next deadline is June 30th, which sounds like a long time apart, but I will tell you it's 121 days between March 1st and June 30th. By June 30th, you have to have a brand new housing plan authored and adopted. Housing plans require both your planning board to approve it because it's a master plan element, but it's the only master plan document that also requires the governing body's endorsement because it can contemplate expenditures. So it's a 2-meeting process. On top of that, that housing plan has to be accompanied by all of the ordinances that are necessary to implement it. So I know in this round, the borough had several sites that it rezoned via various redevelopment. I don't know if they were ordinances or redevelopment plans, but there were several sites identified. So all of the ordinances for those sites would have to be included, the new sites that would be selected, as well as all the supporting documentation. Typically, a housing plan plus all of its supporting documentation is anywhere from 200 to 900 pages by the time you're done, depending on the size of your obligation and the number of mechanisms selected. 121 days is not a lot of time when you think about it, because there has to be policy decisions made. There have to be meetings about, well, where are we going to place this obligation? And so if the borough is going to go down the road of following these timelines, I would encourage you, don't wait until March 1st to start thinking about this, because there will simply not be enough time. It's going to go by in a blink of an eye. That June 30th deadline is the next deadline where you can lose immunity if you miss that date. After that, once again, any interested party can file an objection to your housing plan saying why they don't like it and why they don't think it's constitutionally compliant. And then the program will evaluate any disputes. There's no timelines after that because I think they realize that there's going to be several disputes across the state and it's going to take some time to process all of those. So the next deadline won't happen until March of 2026, and that's when you actually adopt the effectuating ordinances. So the ordinances would be attached to that housing plan in draft format, but they wouldn't actually be adopted until they were reviewed and approved by the program. So as this letter, I should note one other thing. Durational adjustments are still allowed. A durational adjustment is when a town doesn't have sufficient water and or sewer to satisfy its entire obligation. I have to admit I don't know anything about your water and sewer, but I know in some towns that's a real issue, that some towns are getting very close to their maximum limits, and it's going to become a problem in this next round. The other item I would point out is page 68 of the legislation makes a significant change that does impact Pompton Lakes. In fact, it affects every town in the Highlands, the Pinelands, and the Meadowlands. So irregardless of the fact that you have not opted in, the new legislation says that any new residential units that are built have to have a 20% set aside. So a good message to pass along to your planning and your zoning boards, if they have any new applications, not anything to do with what was in your court settlement in the third round, but if there's anything new that comes in and they are inclined to approve it, it has to have a 20% affordable housing set aside, or you will now be violating the Fair Housing Act. So that is my very brief summary. I'm happy to take any questions that you have. I know this is a pound cake to digest.
So first of all, I want to thank you for presenting it the way you did. It was easily understandable. Now, dealing with this a while and dealing with the state, I'm sure they're going to change things and dates are going to be changed and they're going to extend things. And so, we're not gearing for that. But my question for you is, we got everything done in round 3 to have it done, but never got the judge to sign off on it. So now what happens? Brogan every day would say, I'm signing.
He's retired.
I understand.
That's the problem.
So what happens at that point?
So, if you are at the 1 yard line and everything is done, it's in your best interest to have that judgment of repose.
Okay, it's something with the microphone.
Okay. And so that a judgment of repose is much stronger than what's going to be as part of this new legislation. This new legislation, you essentially get a certificate. I feel like I'm handing my 7-year-old something that she got from her teacher. It does not have the same strength as a judgment of repose. Now, the judgment of repose for a town that did go through this 3rd round process was supposed to extend until July, someday the first week of July. Every town is different. And so what this new legislation does is it actually eliminates 6 months of your judgment of repose and compliance. And that's what protects you from builder remedy lawsuits and anything in that manner. And so what it's also frustrating to me is, so towns were presented with the carrot and stick approach. And that's always how COA has worked. The carrot was always come in and voluntary compliance, and you'll receive protection. Under COA, it was a substantive certification. Under this round, it was a judgment of repose and compliance. In this new round, it's a paper certificate. But the paper certificate isn't as strong as a judgment of repose and compliance. So if you're at the finish line, I would suggest filing an order. I channel my attorney brain, but yes, whatever the vehicle is to get the new judge's attention.
We were one of the first towns to get the agreement and get it finished and done.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes back 4 attorneys ago, by the way, maybe 5. So we had gotten that all done, and we just couldn't get him to sign. He kept saying, I'll sign it next week, I'll sign it next week. And that went on for years. So now we're at a point where we have an agreement. It's all worked out, it's all done. Nobody signed it from the other side. So we'll have to work on that, Mike. That's something I have to really pay attention to.
Okay, now that makes sense, because I scoured the internet and your website, and I couldn't find a judgment, and
That's
so
why.
now I know why.
Okay, any other questions?
Real quick, so I'm the liaison to the MUA, and actually the MUA just did a preliminary capacity analysis on the wastewater, and the potential capacity is limited. Would that be a reason why the borough would basically look to revise down the number of affordable housing units? Because we're getting to the point where we're getting close to like 85%, depending on what developments come through and everything like that. And then all of a sudden we're in a different territory and things like that.
So the 85%, is that their flow capacity right now? Or does that take into account all the projects that are outlined in the
So
housing plan?
it's not every project that's in the fair share plan that's been identified as a developable site, but there are projects that are in various stages of the project pipeline that they've accounted for. So they've added in those, that generation of wastewater. So that is already accounted for to a degree. There's a couple other numbers that are sort of like, these developments may or may not happen that affects that number, and that would actually put us over the 85% threshold, and then we're not too far into 90. It doesn't take too much to get into 95. So we're already getting to the point where absent additional wastewater capacity would actually have an impact on our ability to provide affordable housing based on inclusionary zoning and all of that other stuff too.
Is the entire borough sewered? Or do you have areas where there's
No,
septic?
it's all sewer.
Okay, all right, okay, that's good to know, because I have a town where some of our sewers reserved for failing septics that are adjacent to the sewer service area. So I think that we'd want to take a deep dive with the MUA to see how many of the projects in the existing housing plan were included and how many weren't. And if we put it all in, how much capacity do you have left? Because if we put it all in, because that's, once you sign that settlement agreement, you said we're gonna build, or we're gonna make it possible to build all of this.
Okay.
And so if we put all those developments into the calculation and you're out of sewer, then you are going to have an issue. And then a durational adjustment is not terribly hard to do. In fact, I like it, it's easier than a vacant land adjustment because the numbers are what they are. Especially if you have one sewer provider, that makes life much easier. And do you have any interconnections?
No.
We,
Well, just the one with the river.
I don't know if we have sewer interconnections, I know we have water interconnections,
Okay.
so.
So yes, that's something you definitely would want to look at because if I had to guess, you should expect that your third or your fourth round number is probably going to be around 100 units. And if you want to, if you want to zone your way out of that, you're talking about with a 20% set aside, 5 times that amount.
Does that include the unmet need? Because we did the vacant land adjustment, so we had the prospective need and
Not
the
in the
current
third round.
need.
Not according to your settlement agreement.
I thought H2M had done.
I thought they
vacant
did
land
too.
analysis.
So I can tell you the settlement agreement that's attached to your housing plan did not do a vacant land analysis. You were satisfying the entire obligation of 265.
But some of that was covered under the unmet need numbers, right?
Mhm.
That's where we put some stuff.
Okay, we'll have to look into that a little bit. So, for the public and for the council, this is a very complicated thing that we've been dealing with for many, many years, and this will go on forever. The state, in their wisdom, makes decisions sometimes that aren't the smartest for the towns themselves, even for themselves to figure out the whole procedure. They don't even have it in place yet. So we're holding our breath. We'll see what we got to do with your help and administrator and our attorney. We'll try to get where we got to be. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Motion to open the meeting for public session.
So moved.
Second. Council President Blind, Councilman Cruz, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Anyone from the public like to address? Seeing no one? Is that hand up, down? What is that? Stop? Yes, step up.
Stop showing it.
Randy Hinton, 443 Montclair Avenue. Resolution 24-215. I think it was the council meeting that you were on vacation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I had understood that the roof was leaking in the DPW garage. And I had brought up about where are we in rebuilding the DPW garage? And Council President DeLine was running the meeting, of course, in your absence. And I see there's a submission to Congress, Pasquale, Congressman Pasquale, for replacement of the garage. And I just wanted to thank Councilman DeLine, the one time that he took over.
Nothing to
And
do.
I mentioned about the DPW garage, and geez, action was happening already.
He got it all done, that's all.
Yeah, that's
You know,
right. It's
I
all
mean-
me, yeah.
Just one meeting you missed, and amazing things.
Well, I don't miss meetings.
I want to thank you.
See, Michael makes us all look good.
Thank you. 24-220, about the violation extension, is that going to be discussed in workshop? That resolution?
Oh, that's right, Jen.
And in ordinance 24-23, how does the town ascertain which, it says certain, New Jersey for lead-based paint, we forgot the T, paint inspections of certain rental properties? How do we ascertain what the ones we're going to check?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else from the public like to address? Excuse me. Thank you. Seeing no one, can I have a motion to close the public session? So moved. Council
Second.
President Klein, Councilwoman Kilberg, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? All right, we'll start with 2015. Yes, Councilman DeWine, Council President DeWine had the complete solving of that problem. No, we have been dealing with this for a little bit, and we had some meetings just recently on it with some of our committees, and we're trying many different avenues to see where we can appropriate enough money to fix that building and build a new building there. Which one? The grace period. Yes, we will be talking that in workshop. And 2423, there is a formula that identifies the houses, but I'll let Michael explain what that formula is.
Thanks, Mayor. So for the public, this is the lead-based paint inspection program, which is a newly adopted law by the state. The municipality has an obligation to inspect rental units, single-family and multi-dwelling rental units that were constructed prior to 1978, and inspect them for lead-based paint. So this ordinance establishes the program, and we're in the process of retaining a consultant to do the inspections.
Okay, thank you. Approval of minutes. Motion to approve the following minutes. Regular meeting minutes, April 24th, 2024.
So moved.
Council President Devine,
Second.
Councilwoman Kilberg, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Bills and claims. Motion to approve the following list listed below. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilman Vennon,
Second.
Council President Devine, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay, consent agenda. Does anybody need anything removed?
Yes, Mayor.
Yeah, which one?
24209, please.
209,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, which one?
209.
24209. Anybody else? Okay, whenever you're ready, Liz.
Whereas the mayor and borough council of the borough of Thompson Lake said to do the consent agenda consisting of various proposed resolutions, and whereas the mayor and borough council of the borough of Thompson Lake does desire to remove resolutions for individual action from that agenda, now therefore be resolved, the following resolutions on the consent agenda are hereby approved. We're going to remove 24-209, and we're going to approve 24-210 through 24-220.
Okay, thank you. Motion to approve the resolutions.
Motion.
Councilman Vennon,
Second.
Councilwoman Kilberg, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? 24209, you had a question?
Yes, I just wanted to thank Christiane Jennings for her service on the 3 boards, and that she went above and beyond on the boards that I served, and hopefully her replacement will come close.
Yes, she did do 3 boards for us, so we thank her for taking the time out to do that, and she did a good job. I know in the library board, she
Yeah,
did an
she did.
outstanding job. So I do thank her. Okay, Liz, just 24209 then.
Accepting the resignation of Deanna Jennings from the Borough of Pumpkin Lake Secretary to the Pumpkin Lakes Library Board of Trustees, Historic Preservation Commission, and Flood Advisory Board.
Motion to approve resolution 24209.
Motion.
Councilman Vennon,
Second.
Council President Devine, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ordinances, whenever you're ready, Liz.
First reading, second reading, and final adoption May 22nd. Ordinance 24-23, amending code of the Borough of Pumpkin Lake to provide for the administration of the requirement imposed by the state of New Jersey for lead-based paint inspection of certain residential rental dwellings and to establish fees for inspection.
Motion to approve ordinance 2423 for introduction.
Motion.
Council President Devine, Councilman Vennon, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? 2424?
I'm going to do roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call, I'm sorry.
Councilman Dewan.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kilmer.
Yes.
Councilwoman Polidori.
Yes.
Councilman Vennon.
Yes.
Councilman Cruz.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2424, amending chapter 2 of the revised general ordinance and revising the organizational structure of the police department.
Motion to approve ordinance 2424 for introduction.
So moved.
Councilwoman Kilberg,
Second.
Councilman Cruz, all in favor?
Aye.
Roll call, I'm sorry, roll call.
Councilman Dewan.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kilmer.
Yes.
Councilwoman Polidori.
Yes.
Councilman Vennon.
Yes.
Councilman Cruz.
Yes.
Ordinance 2425, amending Chapter 2 of the revised general ordinances and requiring commissioners of the redevelopment agency to be residents of the borough of Pumpkin Lake.
Motion to approve ordinance 24-25 for introduction.
Motion.
Councilwoman Polidori,
Second.
Councilwoman Kilberg, roll call, please.
Councilman Dewan.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kilmer.
Yes.
Councilwoman Polidori.
Yes.
Councilman Vennon.
No.
Councilman Cruz.
Yes.
Okay, final adoptions.
Final adoption, This ordinance has been advertised and posted on the municipal bulletin board, amended Chapter 14, Refuse and Recycling of the Code of the Borough of Council, revising the penalties for violation for the provisions of that chapter.
Motion to open the meeting for public comments on ordinance 24-22.
Motion.
Councilman Brennan, Councilwoman Polidori, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Anyone from the public like to address just this ordinance? Please step up.
Randy Hinton, 443 Montclair Ave. Just an observation in reading it. It says, "Be it ordained by the Borough Council of Borough Pompton Lakes in the County of Morris." When did we change counties?
I don't see that.
Right at the top.
Where?
Is ordained. Right.
Oh, in the actual ordinance. Oh, okay, we'll fix that, thank you.
A typo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to close the meeting for public comments on ordinance 24-22.
Motion. Second.
Councilwoman Polidori, Councilwoman Kilberg, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion to approve ordinance 24-22 for final adoption. Have a motion.
Motion.
Council President Devine, Councilwoman Polidori, roll call, please.
Councilman Devine.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kilburn.
Yes.
Councilwoman Polidori.
Yes.
Councilman Brennan.
Yes.
Councilman Cruz.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, under my report, last night I attended the Passaic County 200 Club Valor Award dinner last night. Over 400 people were in attendance. These awards are given out to first responders who have gone above and beyond in their duties. Our very own volunteer fire department captain, Zachary Majewski, received the Valor Award for his heroic actions in the house explosion on Ramapo Avenue. Well done by all our volunteer firemen who risk their lives on a daily basis, and it was a great event. There was a lot of really heartbreaking stories there, a lot of information about big busts with drugs and autos and cars. So, you know, it's a well-run organization, a lot of people there. 2 weeks ago, or last week, I organized a meeting last week with the Assistant Commissioner of the DEP and numerous DEP representatives and mayors and administrators from surrounding towns to discuss the operation of the dam and the reservoir. The meeting was productive, but a lot of the questions that were asked by myself and the Mayor of Wayne really did not go answered. We hope to have a follow-up meeting soon, try to get more answers to make sure Pompton is not being sacrificed with the dam operation and continue pushing to have the reservoir lowered. So they did a very good PowerPoint presentation. The PowerPoint presentation was 45 minutes, and they set the meeting for an hour, so they didn't really leave a lot of room for discussion and talk. I can tell you that the Mayor of Wayne's suggestion, and I'm doing a little research now to see if it's viable, he wants to open the dam before a storm a little bit and just keep it open the whole event. So water is constantly running through. It's not a bad idea. When he asked that question, they could not give him an answer on why they couldn't do it. They said they'd get back to him. And when I asked about a way to lower the reservoir weeks before a storm event, when we know a bunch of rain is coming, they said, I'm talking to the wrong department. They will bring the next department in at the next meeting to kind of discuss that. So maybe we'll get some more answers. We did have an assistant commissioner there. Hopefully we'll get the actual commissioner next time, so more to follow with that. I attended the river cleanup with over 100 volunteers, cleaning our rivers in Pompton Lakes. You know, that's, as I said down there, this is one of the events that makes Pompton Lakes what it is. Residents coming out to clean their own communities and do what they have to do. The garbage, and there was a bunch of people from up here who were there, the garbage they pulled out of there was amazing of how much garbage in 1 year, remember we do this every year, was pulled out. The rain didn't damper, there was a little rain, the rain didn't damper the experience. Well over 100 volunteers to do it, so I thank everybody who put this in. I thank the Environmental Club. I thank Councilwoman Kilberg for helping organize it. It was a nice event, and it was nice to see everybody outside working hard. I was excited to accept a $500,000 check from Congressman Pascrell for our library. We had applied for a grant from his office and received it, and he came here in person to present the check. He recognized our library as a historic building, and we hope to do improvements with this money. We can't thank Congressman enough for coming here in person and for getting us that money. It was a big deal, and $500,000 will go a long way to put our historic building back together. I had numerous meetings with the department heads and our administrator, the DPW, the police personnel. I performed a couple weddings last week. And lastly, tomorrow, I'm honored to attend a Rotary sold-out event for our own Councilman Billy Begg, a man who has always been dedicated to this community for the last 30 years. He is definitely missed, and I'm glad to see the public is representing him tomorrow at this event. And that is my report. Council President Vaughn.
All my meetings are in this, usually around the second, so I have no reports tonight, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Kilburg.
I attended the flood board meeting, and I would like to thank Lauren Vennon and the rest of the members for teaching me something new every time I attend a meeting. It's very interesting. I attended the Arbor Day presentation at Lenox and Lincoln School this year, and it was fun hearing all the names the kids thought up for their trees, and Humphrey was my favorite, personal favorite. I attended the Fine Arts Night at the high school, and we have some very talented students. The artwork was impressive, and the live performances were spectacular. The Pompton Lakes River cleanup was this past Sunday. It was a nice turnout for a cold, rainy day. I would like to thank Gene Hoffman and the Columbia Bank for their generous donation, and I'd also like to thank Valerie Cole for all her help and the bid for their generous donation as well. Without them, the day would not have been possible, and thank you to everyone who came out to help. And last night, I attended the 200 Clubs Valor Award dinner, where the Pompton Lakes Volunteer Fire Department's Captain Zach Majansky received a Valor Award for his heroic acts on January 14th, 2023. Thank you, Zach, and all our first responders for your service to our community. That's my report.
And thank you. Councilwoman Polidori.
Thank you. So I, along with Councilwoman Kilburg and Shade Tree Commissioner Randy Hinton, brought the third grade tree program to both Lincoln and Lenox again this year. I think this is our 8th year, right, of Randy and I doing this, so we were happy to welcome Councilwoman Kilburg with us, and I do want to thank our borough administrator. So for those of you that are not familiar with it, it's a program implemented by the state where they give free tree seedlings to any third grade student, any school that wants to distribute them to their third grade students. There have been some issues with NJ Forestry as far as staffing and tree growth this year, so they were not able to get a sufficient amount of those seedlings, and being that it was 8 years, and we do have parents that reach out every year and show us how the trees are growing, and siblings that attend that have younger brothers and sisters that wanted to be a part of that as well. Our borough administrator, in a pinch, was able to find us trees to get through the program this year, so I thank you. The principals really enjoy it. The kids get a big kick out of it. So it was a really nice day. And Humphrey was cute. We had a Taylor Swift. We had no John Cena this year. Every year for 8 years, we've had a John Cena tree. So he was replaced by Taylor Swift this year. I also attended the library grant presentation. We are fortunate to have a very beautiful library in this town, so I thank everyone involved in helping us secure those funds so that we can make the improvements that that building needs. I also attended numerous DPW finance and personnel meetings, discussions, as we just heard, centered around the future of what that site looks like, and look forward to hearing what some of the ideas and changes we can make to improve that facility for our workers are as well. I attended a pasta dinner at the Elks. The recipient of this most recent pasta dinner was a first responder from our town who has returned to school to further her education in the healthcare field and go on to be paramedic. So we were able to raise funds to help her offset the cost of that. I attended the Prevention Coalition meeting. I also attended the 82 years birthday, the 82nd birthday dinner for the Pompton Lakes Women's Club, an organization in town that does a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes to help a lot of our community organizations. So it was nice to see a completely packed room at Villa Verde of a lot of members that came out to share some food and friendship that evening. I also attended the 200 Club dinner for Passaic County at the Brownstone, and I thank our own for his valor and his efforts in the house fire last year, his rescue efforts for 2 of his fellow firefighters. It was a moving evening. As a member, I've sat through a few of these, and I'll tell you, every year you hear some stories that are just extraordinary. So it was probably the most packed I've seen it, over 400 seats filled, and I think close to 90 recipients across the state for numerous activities. So we thank all of our first responders for everything they do every day. I also attended a small business webinar, which I'm asking for some information on additionally that I hope to share with the bids soon regarding some grants that are being released at the county level to startup and existing small businesses in Passaic County. And coming up for this weekend, I also will be in attendance at the Rotary Dinner. Happy to see that that was sold out, well-deserved, and an extraordinary honor. I will be attending the Walk for Hope on Saturday, and breakfast at the Elks is being served on Sunday in honor of all of our moms. So if you have a mom and you're looking for somewhere to have breakfast, they do a great job. And I would like to wish all of the mothers a very happy Mother's Day this weekend. And that is my report.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank Dave Culp, and congratulations on his recognition. I can attest to the work that he's done, had a huge impact on the flood-affected residents. Definitely want to thank you, the Environmental Protection Committee and the volunteers who did all the river cleanup. I was unavailable to attend, but I saw that there were a lot of folks that did attend and did a lot of work. The Pompton Lakes Fine Arts Night, the food was phenomenal. This is my first one, and the chicken wings, the burgers, what else did they make? Pizza.
Did you see any art?
Did I see the art? Yeah, there was some stuff hanging on the walls. There's some stuff hanging on the walls. Music, yeah, the teachers band that played they're amazing. It was very impressive. So thanks to all involved for making that successful. Last weekend, I had the opportunity to teach Girl Scout Troop 96380 how to change tires. Leah, Jaylene, Hadia, and Katie, you guys did a phenomenal job. It was a win-win because I had to swap out my tires anyway on the Jeep. So I'll be honest, so perfect opportunity. They did a great job. They learned a life skill. I had a lot of parents come up to me and say no one ever showed them how to change a tire, so it was a win-win. So thank you, ladies. You guys did a great job, and there'll be additional how to check engine oil, how to paint a house, how to shovel snow. I'm kidding. Lastly, Trails Maintenance is May 11th at 10 a.m. just before. We're going to split ourselves. Somehow we'll make it to both, Ryan, don't worry. Saturday, May 11th at 10 a.m. We meet right by the Red Trail on Lincoln Ave, near the MUA, near the radio station. And that is my report, Mayor.
Thank you. If the girls would like to come over and paint my house, they're more than welcome to come
We'll
paint my
pass
house.
the word along there.
Councilman Cruz.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the Board of Health meeting on Monday. It was a very brief meeting. It was just, we probably had about 5 new businesses in town that were issued licenses. Sombrero Tequeria, Benny's Cafe, the Den Eatery, which I did go to, and it is excellent. I just want to point that out. The wings too are very good. Juicy Deli, and the 2024 pool licenses. No reports from any of the committee members for that meeting. The Board of Education meeting was yesterday. I attended that meeting as well. The budget, the school district budget was approved, $42,613,346. The tax levy from the general fund will be $26,327,972. The curriculum department did speak to 2 new programs. One is not so new, they had about a year into it, is the Unified Club and Unified Champions of Pompton Lakes High School. I did not know about this program. I'm going to read directly from the website because the presentation itself was excellent. It's for all the special needs children that we have in town from all age groups, and it's about inclusivity and including them in a lot of the activities that we take for granted because we do them all the time, such as basketball. So just to redirect, it's a national organization. You do need to provide your own funding. We were able to get 2 grants, $5,000 last year. Fortunately, this year it was cut in half, but they made it work. So I'm just going to read this from the website. Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools is a program for schools pre-K through university that intentionally promotes meaningful social inclusion by bringing together students with and without intellectual disabilities to create accepting school environments. Very important. I mean, I love that in itself. Utilizing 3 interconnected components: Special Olympics Unified Sports, inclusive youth leadership, and whole school engagement. So last night, 2 of the participants, Zion, I think everybody's familiar with Zion, and Ryan, they were awesome. They were so excited, and more about kicking butt. They played the teachers on senior night, and they were very excited about how many points they scored and did an awesome job. The other item, which is a new program going to start this year in the schools, so please share this with the young ones if you have from pre-K to 3. This program is called Amplify CKLA. This program right now is going to be started for the 24-25 school year. It's an online platform, and it's interesting, the approach. So I'm going to give you the example they gave last night. They brought up Greek mythology, a lot of the gods. So what they do is that they use this and the language associated with this particular period of history to get the kids to embrace, understand, and their phonetics become more improved by utilizing this language through, obviously in this particular example, Greek gods, fiction and nonfiction. So it was very interesting. It was a great presentation. I'm looking forward to see the report come next year to see how well they're doing. And the last item, I just want to go over a lot of the expenses that are going to go on for the 24-25 school year for the school. I did mention this probably about 2 months, but I just want to reiterate this again. So a lot of the capital projects total up to $1,958,468, which will cover Lakeside Turf Field bleachers, $699,000. Lennox synthetic turf. If you guys are Lennox by the basketball court, you know the patch of grass that's in the far right, that's going to be converted to synthetic. That is $312,820. Lennox HVAC upgrade, $258,115. PLHS culinary room flooring, $191,147. PLHS science lab upgrade, $376,941. PLHS rooms 22 flooring, $31,000. Business office CST Lennox second floor hallway flooring, $45,000. Lennox boiler room hallway abatement, $17,000. And Lincoln School office upgrades and other to a total of $27,445. And obviously this is to occur over the 24-25 school year. And one last thing, the Walk for Hope is Saturday, folks. So please remember to register. There's still time. Get your groups together. Online registration is still available. Obviously, you can be in person. Show up at 10 o'clock. I'm excited. It's going to be a great day, rain or shine.
So where they're meeting?
So we're meeting at the high school. Okay, so be there by 10 a.m. Ryan will be there. I'll be there. A bunch of folks ready to help, and I look forward to seeing quite a few people there. And that'll do it for my report, man.
Councilman Cruz, real quick, any word on the new marching band director?
No, not last night. I didn't hear anything on the new marching band director.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I was glad to hear 5 new businesses. That's a big number of businesses to come into
Yes.
town. That's a
Yes,
nice
and I've
number.
attended one already, and I can speak to
That's
them.
great to hear. That's really good. Okay, attorney report. Any report?
Thank you, Mayor, nothing this evening.
Okay, administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Tomorrow, we have a pre-construction meeting scheduled for the Howard Street, Maple Street, Babbitt Place road resurfacing project, We should have a firmer schedule on that moving forward. We're accepting bids tomorrow for the Hirschfield Street and Ackerman Place improvements project. A pre-construction meeting will follow on that. The Dawes Highway improvements project is under engineering design right now. We're hoping to target a milling and paving this fall for that project. Lincoln Ave Phase 2, as I mentioned in the prior council meeting, is scheduled for milling on May 23rd and May 24th, and paving is scheduled for May 28th and May 29th, with striping activities on June 1st, Saturday, June 1st. So we're looking forward to that project getting underway. And of course, the police department and the schools have all been notified and are involved with traffic control. Last Friday, I met on site with the Passaic County Roads Department at the intersection of Lenox and Ramapo Ave. We uncovered approximately 5 feet of compacted debris at the bottom of one of our inlets, which we seem to believe has caused the localized flooding issue along Lenox Ave. It appeared that someone at some point dumped a significant amount of wet concrete into the inlet, which has caused this issue. They had to get jackhammers down into the inlet to break it up. We thought it was the bottom, but it was a false bottom of the inlet, so that's what caused the issue. So we did uncover a lot of pipes. We do believe the system is operational, but we are dispatching a TV inspection crew to TV the lines again to make sure that everything is fully operational. The Wanacue Ave paver replacements project is complete. It was completed last week for a total cost of $44,000. all of which was covered by Passaic County Corridor Enhancement Funding, which is a special fund that is collected from redevelopment projects within Pompton Lakes, and that's collected through the county, so that's the county giving funds back to the borough. So I think the business owner should be appreciative of the beautification efforts that are moving forward. And on that note, our new flower racks along Wanacue Ave have been installed, and the flowers are expected to be installed next week. We have ordered 61 American flags for Colfax Ave, and those should be up before Memorial Day. And lastly, we are in discussions with the borough engineer on a candidate for this year's DOT municipal aid funding. We're looking at either Lakeside Ave or Garden Road as candidates. Both are in pretty poor condition amongst our road resurfacing list. And that is all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
I got to thank you and the county for fixing the problem over at Lennox. You know, that was a newer problem in the last couple of years, and I know that, you know, unfortunately there was cement in there, and now hopefully that's going to clear up those drains. It's a big deal for those residents over there. You know, you're going to residents who never had any water issues, all of a sudden getting water in their basements. So that's a big deal. And the, you know, the pavers outside in the front there, they look great. They do. They came out nice, and I hope we can do more of that as we move along to make that work. Any questions for the administrator? Nope. Okay. Workshop, tree ordinance violation amendment fees. Why don't you start with that, Mike, and then I'll go from there.
Thank you, Mayor. So on tonight's agenda, the governing body adopted a grace period for the new model tree ordinance. So with that is a grace period on the enforcement of the ordinance up until September 1st. So there is no enforcement, there's no inspections, no violation fee up until September 1st. And with that, we're going to put out an educational campaign to the residents to inform them of this new ordinance before we start enforcing it. And I should note that we do have we have submissions from Borough Forester consultants that we are reviewing, and hopefully by the next council meeting we should be in a position to approve a contract for the position. Furthermore, under workshop tonight, I wanted to talk about the violation fee itself in the ordinance. The way it's written right now is it's up to $1,000 fine or the replacement cost of the tree, or both, for each tree removed or damaged in violation of the ordinance. And with our discussion at the last council meeting or the meeting before, it seemed that the governing body possibly wanted to reduce the up to $1,000 fee. I will tell you, I looked at some of our surrounding municipalities' recently adopted ordinances. It's ranging anywhere from $200 to $1,000. So I just wanted to have a discussion on if there was a intention to change the violation fee.
Well, before we get there, you know, I don't know if everybody's been noticing, there's been a lot of news about this ordinance in other towns. You know, a lot of towns are having the same issues we're having with this ordinance. So maybe the state will take a glance at that and maybe change it. But right now, how do you guys feel about the penalty?
Well, I think the first thing is, I know we had to hire someone.
We're in the process here.
Okay, so, you know, obviously, we don't want to go in the negative and paying their salary to cover this. So at a minimum, whatever that number is to cover. And is it necessary, as far as the expertise, the certification, or whatever is required for this particular individual? There's no one on the Shade Tree Committee? No. There's no one? Do you require as far as the certifications that are required for this role, is that specified by the state on what is required, or is that something that we just need to know?
It's a forester. You have to have a license to be a forester working for the state. There's not that many of them, believe it or not. So I know Shade Tree and myself and Michael are going to sit down with the couple we got. Two of them we know already. But yeah, they have to be a registered forester. We can't just have Shade Tree or anybody else do it.
Dave, is that actually part of the state
So,
law?
Well, no, but for liability reasons, you would want that as well. You want someone out there who knows what they're talking about.
So I'm of the opinion, as long as whatever we agree to here covers that salary.
It's hard to say though, because
We're talking about the violations, though. We're not talking about
People who
the
cut down
assessment.
trees when.
Yeah, but
they
the fee that we charge is gonna be, I mean, obviously, we're not looking to another account to pay that salary.
Well, yes, Councilman, the permit fee and the replacement schedule fee would in part mostly cover the said forester position, but for someone, a resident, goes and cuts down a 3-foot wide tree, technically I have to fine them, according to the ordinance, and as it's written, it's up to $1,000 or the replacement cost of the tree, up to the determination of the forester who's tasked with implementing the ordinance. So we just need to talk about that.
So this is
fee.
about doing it illegally. So you don't follow the procedure, there's gonna be a penalty involved.
Okay.
We have to decide on what the penalty is.
So I'm confused. I thought we were reviewing the fee schedule I didn't realize we were discussing the cap on the violation. I thought we were revisiting the fee schedule for the permits.
Well, we could certainly revisit the fee schedule at the next meeting, but I thought the intention was the violation fee we thought was excessive.
My problem with the whole thing isn't even the fee schedule or necessarily the fine. It's the determination of what killed the tree. I mean, so if somebody says, oh, you put too much mulch, so you killed your tree, I mean, can you really, so to fine somebody $1,000 for that, to me, that is a strange violation. Like, how do you know for sure that's what killed the tree? That was my issue. What determines, you pruned it too much? Well, I'm not a tree expert. If I cut some branches and the tree dies, I didn't do it on purpose, but now I'm going to be fined, I could be fined $1,000 for trying to prune my tree. That was my issue. What we are saying is finable, not necessarily the fine itself.
Well, I don't know that the ordinance specifies how the tree dies.
Oh,
I know if the tree is dead, that you do not need to replace it. It's essentially exempt.
It says it in there.
But we'll review it further with the borough attorney.
And if
That's
that
what I
is
was
true,
worried
I
about.
agree with you, because, homeowner doesn't know what they did or
Well,
didn't do right.
that's what I'm concerned about.
Right, so that does
Yeah.
make some sense, so maybe we should review that a little bit.
Not necessarily the fine. If we know there's an ordinance and we intentionally take down a tree,
So why don't we throw a number around right now for people who kind of just illegally take a tree down without following the permitting process? $1,000 to me is too much, but that's me.
I agree.
I think $1,000 is too much, but I'm less concerned about alleviating the pain on someone that's purposefully broken the law as opposed to the fees we have in place for the people that are trying to do the right thing. I'd rather take it from the other side.
Right, and just to note, probably 85% of the applicants are going to be exempt. It's mostly dead trees and hazardous trees that are identified in the ordinance. So hopefully there's only a limited clientele that's taking out a application that is cutting down a tree that is a cosmetic issue or something of that effect. But we could certainly look at those fees again too.
I'd rather see that. I mean, if you break the law and cut the tree down that you're not supposed to cut down, that's the fine. Whatever that is, it is. I'm not as concerned about that. As long as you're telling me if someone accidentally kills it, they're exempt. I don't want to punish people that mistaken, because
well, right now they're not. So in there it does say, if the arborist came out and said, well, this tree died because you put too much mulch around it, you can be fined for that. It's that they consider that a finable offense.
Yeah, so I don't
That's
agree with
my
that.
issue.
But if you're going outside and cutting your trees down without permission and trying to get away with it and you get caught, then you should be fined. And I'm okay with whatever the maximum is on that. But if it's
Well, it's a
inadvertent,
max,
then,
but do we want to start lower?
No, I would say
start lower,
500.
500.
Look, the reality is, do we really expect that most residents are even gonna know? They're probably just
they're
gonna
not.
do this,
They're not.
and then they're gonna end up finding out
Yeah, after
that,
they cut it down.
after they cut it down, so, we need to drop that number.
Yeah. Is 500 too high?
Cause that's gonna be a big issue.
cutting
They're
it
not gonna
down.
know about this.
well, we're doing a grace period and an educational campaign. Okay.
I just wanna make sure that the number that we select
Thousands a lot.
is not gonna be used to offset costs that we have in other areas regarding this.
Well, what is that? Is
That's,
it-
I'm asking,
Is
I'm
it
asking, is
salary?
it used to offset costs? That's why we have these numbers that we agree to? Whether it's
Well, that's
the,
what, when we had this discussion previously, the discussion centered around, because we're getting into two different things. The permit fees and everything like that, we discussed, and the ordinance was to cover the costs associated with the arborist doing the permitting, doing the assessment, things like that, so that individual user bears the cost of that assessor rather than putting it on the entire taxpayers of the town. So That's one thing. The fines are something completely different that we're discussing today. And my question is, what's the typical replacement cost of a tree?
That's up to the determination of the forester. If it's a younger tree that's only a, 3-inch caliper tree, it's, could be anywhere from $75 to $300.
Oh,
But
so
if
it's based
it-
on the caliper of the tree
Yeah.
that has been illegally removed.
Right, but if it's a massive street tree
Right.
that is 100 feet tall, it's most likely to the max, upon the determination of the forester.
And
And what's the
can we
max?
do staging or we can't
Right
do
now,
staging?
$1,000.
It's at one number? Is that what we're talking about? Is it either this number or nothing, or can we do 200, 300, 500, 700?
No, it should be up to,
It's a range based on
What
the size of the
determines
tree.
that? Oh, okay.
the forester would determine what it would cost to replace that tree.
Now, the forester is being paid as he comes out, or this is going to be a salaried employee?
No, he's paid per site visit.
And we've already figured out mathematically that whatever his site visit is going to be justified by the fees and permits?
Yes,
Are we over that? Can it be brought down a little bit, or are we needing it?
Well, historically, foresters charge $75 to $95. The submissions that we received, that we still have to approve, are $85 to $95. So it is in line
Okay.
with the anticipated, revenue that we possibly would receive.
All
Okay.
right, so why don't we say, I'm just gonna throw it out there, up to $500 for the fine? Or do you wanna go up to 1,000? That's the question.
I'm good up to 500.
If it's a huge tree, up to 1,000, it's gonna cost, it's a minimum of $300 to
Yeah.
replace.
Yeah, it depends on the tree, you're right.
Right, so
Is there?
Well, the reality is you're never actually gonna replace that tree.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it comes down to.
Well-
You're never gonna, you're not gonna plant a $1,000 tree to replace a 100-year-old tree or anything like that. You're
Right.
gonna end up planting a brand new tree.
or
So
multiple
how
trees,
much are you?
or
going-
multiple trees, Councilman.
What's that?
For that one large tree. you
I
can
understand
plant-
that, but finding someone $1,000 is not gonna replace that tree. That's what it comes down to.
It sets a precedent.
I understand that. But it's also up to the judge on how much to
Understood.
actually find that. But, and I'm not actually disputing you on the $1,000, but let's make it clear that finding someone $1,000 is not gonna end up replacing a
Is this
tree.
It may deter them, though,
Yeah.
from taking down a healthy tree.
So this is per occurrence, so if you take down 3 illegal trees.
Yes.
And you say $1,000, theoretically, it could be $3,000.
$3,000.
So,
There's a lot of trees in the south end that could be replanted, it's barren.
well, I think what Mike is looking for is some guidance on the number, so we have to come up with a number.
I think up to 500 seems.
How's 500? Does that sound good, fair to
That
everybody?
seems reasonable.
I have no problem with 1,000.
You have no problem with 1,000?
I have no problem with $1,000.
I don't either, as long as it's done fairly. I do have some concern about Councilwoman Kilberg's point, though.
Well, yeah, I think we just need to look
About
at
someone that
what you
mistakenly kills a
consider.
tree.
Yeah, I think of the arborist would take that into account.
Well, it's in there. That's why I said I wanted to
Yeah.
talk about it and maybe tweak it, because we can tweak the ordinance and make it, not so,
We can take a look at it.
yeah.
All right, so,
I mean, you have people that are gonna be following the rules that might wanna cut down 4 trees to put a pool in, and they're gonna have to come in and they're gonna have to pay the cost of not replacing it, right? Because that's what we're doing. If you cut down a tree and you're not replacing, you have to pay a fee for that. Now, this person's going through all this expense, and I'm sure that if it's 4 trees to cut down their pool, they're gonna go somewhere in that range of what someone is now gonna cut down without permission, and they're gonna be fined less than what someone did it the right way. Like, that doesn't seem fair to me either.
Yeah, and I will note that we do not have a pool exception in the current ordinance.
What do you mean?
There could be an exception if someone's putting in a pool, we could exempt them.
but the
from
problem with the pool
requirements.
is, and because I deal with it a lot on the zoning board, most people that are putting in a pool have to get variances for the pool. There's not enough room, as the rule states, on most properties now in town for pools. So how does that work? After they get the
What if
approval?
it's not a pool? What if it's a patio?
Yeah.
Anything you want to do to improve the aesthetic of your backyard,
They would be subject to the requirements, yes.
so they're subject to the requirements. So now I want to take these trees down because I want to revamp my backyard, and I do it the right way, and I have to take 4 trees down, and now I've paid the cost of not replanting them, the permits, all of that, and then my neighbor doesn't want to do it the right way, and now we're relaxing what the fine is for him, and I've gone, so I would rather alleviate the burden on the people that are doing it the right way, and the penalty for the person that's doing the wrong way, then,
Well,
that's-
I have a question. If, say I removed a tree and I didn't want to replant,
Can I, if I was told by the arborist, well, now you'll have to replant 3 trees for this one, can I pay to replant those 3 trees somewhere else in town?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And there's
That's what the
there's a
program
fee
is.
structure for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so what I'm hearing is it looks like up to $1,000 for the fine. Could you do some more research, both of you, I guess,
Yeah.
on what the Councilwoman Kilberg's bringing up?
Absolutely. Yeah.
To see how we can play with that a little bit.
Yes, and to Councilwoman Polidori's point, we'll take a second look at the,
Exceptions?
at the exceptions and the fees and come back with further recommendations.
Okay.
Okay, next, who's doing this next one, you or Michael?
Well, I can do this,
All right.
Unless Michael has something he wants to add. So at the last meeting, we were asked to take a look at prior Borough Council's memo on the form of government and the division of powers between the mayor and the council. I've looked at it. I didn't want to rewrite it because I agree with the substance of the memo. So I guess my question is, what questions do you have regarding that? I know that a couple questions have come up regarding council contact with professionals, council contact with department heads, and because it's a strong council, that's really up to you as the council, whether you want to have council members individually reaching out to professionals and department heads. I will say this, you have a borough administrator. In a borough manager form of government, council members are not allowed to reach out to the professionals or department heads. They're to channel those communications through the borough manager, to the municipal manager. That's not this form of government, but it may be a model for the best practices, because what you don't want is a duplication of communications to me, or contradictory communications to department heads in the borough. And so you have a borough administrator. It's probably best to use your borough administrator in that way, but it's entirely your call how you want to communicate with me or any of the professionals, as well as the department heads. But my recommendation would be to use your borough administrator for that purpose.
So what you're saying is I could email you if I wanted to,
Absolutely.
but I really should be asking Michael
At
the
very
question and
least,
direct it to
copy
you.
Michael.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Because he may be, there may be other communications that other folks have reached out to Michael on.
If
And
they
so-
ask, someone asks, so if Eric then emails him the same question, he already has the answer, and we don't have to talk to you twice.
Exactly. Because you're already paying him every
Mhm.
time you reach out to me.
Sounds
I try to
You work for a living.
You work for a living.
So I'm okay with that. We got to this point because we started to head, and this is not the first time it's come up, where we are kind of told we can't correspond with anyone unless we copy. And this is not, we're taking it to between the council and the borough administrator. That wasn't a discussion. We've been told, we can't send emails out unless we copy the mayor. We've been told we can't reach out to anyone unless we ask the mayor's permission. We've been told the mayor's told professionals they're not allowed to speak to the council. And it's been stopped, and now it gets revisited, and then it's been stopped, and I want to just have it finalized so that we don't have to continue going through this, because it's a waste of your time as a borough administrator and your time as an attorney to continue to do this. We are a lead mayor strong council. So at any point in time, any one of us up here can make a motion to change anything, and with the majority vote, that's it. We basically make the decisions
That's
as a
correct.
council.
Yeah, that's correct.
But as executor of the town and overseeing of the town, I should be made aware of any communications going on with department heads or professionals. That's part of being the job as the executor of the town. I can't be blindsided by a professional coming to me and saying, I had this discussion with 2 of your council people, and they both were asking different things.
Well, channeling it through the borough administrator should alleviate that, because you do most of the communication with him. I think what we're missing the point on here is that this has become a micromanagement of such minutia that it's actually unbelievable. I mean, conversations that are irrelevant, and we've been called out on. I must be copied on this, so much so that I have an email that went back and forth in 2022 where I was told I would not be included in anything until I learned to copy the mayor on all of my
You
correspondence.
should be copying me.
We don't work
And-
like
and-
that.
and
I
let me
don't
just-
have to.
And let me just say, your emails do get to me.
If Michael wants to entertain that and forward all of the little conversations that are of no consequence, basic questions, it was about the color of playground equipment at one point. So I don't know about the rest of you. I have an assistant and I certainly don't micromanage all of their emails. I would lose my mind. I had to read all of their emails. I trust that we have hired a professional borough administrator that works close with all of these council members that can coordinate with the mayor. We don't work for you. We work for this whole town. We don't have to answer to you. And you've gotten to the point where, and I am going to say that I actually could ask to go back 2 or 3 years and see if you can prove to me in writing that this just has not been asked of the women of you. And I'd like to see all correspondence going back and forth between the other councilmen and see that they've all been copied. Because you have done it to me in such a way where it's actually inappropriate.
All right, as executive of the town, I have to be made aware of any decisions that are being talked about, either through Michael or.
No,
through-
but you don't.
I'm talking.
You don't.
I do.
You do not.
Well, then you need to explain to us what the executive of the town's job is.
Well, okay, so, the mayor is very hands-on there, and very involved in, communicating with people. So it's understandable that you want to be copied. But the council is not required.
No,
to
I'm not
copy
saying
you
you
on
are,
that. So just to be clear on that, it's understandable that you want to. But the council is free to email the administrator or email others without copying you on it. But, you know, at the same time, while we're talking about emails, I always like to just remind all public officials that your emails are operable. So just be touched for that as well. So there may be good reasons to copy you on everything, particularly given the role you've assumed in this borough. But it cannot be required unless the council imposes it.
So for an example, an email was sent to our administrator today, asking for him to make an appointment of some sort. That email should have never been sent to the administrator, it should have been sent to me, because I'm the appointment.
You don't, and I actually spoke to
That's
Michael
not
before I
true.
sent that email, and all of the appointments are advice and consent, and I know you're looking into that now too, to see what you can do
No,
without.
that's not true. I make the appointments, you vote on the appointments.
No, it's the
So-
liaisonship, and that's decided amongst the council at the reorg meeting. That is not your appointment.
Yes, it is.
We have never done.
Let the
mayoral-
attorney answer. Yeah.
The mayor makes appointments. The mayor makes appointments, and it's with the consent of the council.
So the
the mayor-
liaisonships, not board, our actual council liaisonship roles, I think that's where the confusion was.
Okay. I'm not certain.
So past practice has always been seniority is how we decide liaisonships. That's the fact.
Right, and I think that's actually,
So that's what happens, yeah.
okay.
And I had that conversation with the current liaison and the borough administrator, just to fill out where we were.
Well, again, and I think it's important, because how we handled our council assignments, we had discussions on this is what I want, this is what I want. Ultimately, when you get into the business of the actual appointments, it's, I believe it's the mayor who makes those appointments in the council meeting. So conducting business, I don't want to say behind the scenes, but we're trying to figure out what we're going to do
You did
in
it
a
this
collective
year.
manner. I did it myself.
With correspondence with me.
Right, with correspondence, but like, ultimately, I do believe it is the mayor's appointments on our assignments.
So you understand that I know that question was a question and that it would have to have been voted on either way. So the way it's being misconstrued right now is that I asked just to have it done. I've been up here long enough to know that my asking Michael wasn't going to be Michael was going to say yes and it was going to happen. I was asking to see if we knew, and I wasn't even going to bring this up because you haven't even made that announcement yet. So
Nothing's been there.
Wait, so I need to have this clarified now. So are you saying that the mayor makes the appointment, but the council can vote yes or no?
Yes,
Okay,
that's correct.
okay.
So here's how it works. The mayor makes the appointment. council has to consent to it. So you need, if the council does not consent to it, or just does nothing, then the mayor appointed, then after 30 days, it becomes the council's appointment, because this is a strong council meeting.
Okay, so,
But if you approve it, it takes only 3, if you approve it, then the mayor's appointment.
So there really is, without things that aren't dictated by NJ statute, which is very little, there isn't really much that we don't control here as members of the council.
No, that's right. I mean, I think there are, that is the vast majority. There is an appointment to the planning board that is made exclusively by the mayor, I believe. But there's also an appointment to the planning board that's made exclusively by the council.
It says,
I think the historical commission is, I think there was some lawsuits. I think the mayor has a little more, I'm sorry, not the library.
Yeah, every time something's shaking.
So-
Do we have a gavel? It's the library board. I think you have,
Yep.
you have, 1 or 2 appointments
That's
that you
fine.
make to the library board.
okay.
I think this, I mean, if you
Yes,
want to
I
read
think it
that
says
paragraph
mayor's-
pretty much sums
mayor's-
up the whole thing.
Yes,
Mayor's appointment.
full power to exercise all powers of local government in the manner as its council may determine.
Reside within the council.
So it's my appointment
Yeah.
by vote of council. That's what we always do.
Yeah.
All right, so, and then, but then it's at our discretion to allow you to do that, right? We vote, and then if we vote no, it doesn't matter. This very clearly says, as a general premise, unlike mayor-council option under Fulker Act, the mayor in a borough form of government has few direct powers concerning the operation of the municipality.
Right.
So then, as far as workshop, there's issues with, and there was an email where it said, I can add or take off whatever I want from the agenda. So we have council people that are asking things to have things put on the agenda, and then they're being taken off. So where does that land?
No, the agenda is up to the council.
Okay,
Nothing's been removed that I'm aware of from the agenda. Anything that Michael's been asked of, he puts on. I've never told him not to add anything.
No, mine was just pushed.
It was just
But I-
changed. Oh, that
I
was-
pushed it.
That was
me.
your
Yeah,
turn.
and I
Yeah.
pushed it a little bit more now.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, I saw that.
so then we can, in fact, add whatever we want to the agenda.
Well, we're going to talk about, I think, the next meeting about the workshop itself, right?
Okay.
So, and I have some concerns about that, because it seems like it's gone back and forth, that all of a sudden there's an issue with workshop. Regardless of workshop, we can add whatever we want to the agenda and
Sure.
talk about whatever we want.
Sure.
So,
And you have that ability under privilege of the floor as well.
right, but so workshop, privilege of the floor is really an opportunity to speak about anything as an individual. Workshop was something we asked for so that, as a council, we could discuss things that we're voting on without violating quorum,
Mhm.
with the ability to use you
Yep.
up here before we vote on things. So my ask was gonna be, if we are looking at this, it makes more sense to me to have it moved to the front, because we talked about the trees after we voted on the resolution, right? So we're having conversations about things after we're voting on them. I think it may be, now that we've kind of walked through it a little bit and we see how it's working, if we could move it to the front.
That's something we'll talk about when we talk about the workshop. That's not discussion time right now.
Yeah, remember.
Well, I'm
too,
asking
that
the
you can-
question, so I'm asking the question.
All right, and I'm telling you, we'll talk about it at the next workshop.
So that's what I mean, like, I don't like the fact that everything I say is being controlled by you when I can or cannot say.
What I'm saying is, we're going to discuss it when Michael has some time. You can't just throw something in Michael's lap and have him work on it
When I
now.
spoke with Michael the other day, I was under the impression we were revisiting it tonight.
It wasn't under the agenda, so I didn't see it.
Remember as well that you can always have a resolution pulled if you want to discuss it. Because you can, before, once it's moved and seconded, you can have a discussion. of the resolution.
Okay, that was
So-
my next question too. At what point in the ordinances, because I think we're missing discussion in there too, are we allowed to, and I asked the attorney that was here last time, and I don't remember where he pointed, but
After a discussion of either a resolution or an ordinance should not happen until it's moved and seconded. At that point, you can ask that it be
So-
discussed prior to the vote.
introduction, motion, second, before public comment?
Normally, you would do it, I would think, Well, no, I think on the second reading, you would do it after the public comment, because there may be things that are raised by the public.
All right, so not introduction, second and final reading.
But, no, I mean, when you introduce it for the first time, you can have a discussion then. I mean, I would think that
After
with
public.
the workshop. No, when you introduce an ordinance on just reading, right, first reading, you can have a discussion then, prior to, it's moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Okay. I'm just trying to create an environment where we have the ability to talk and to ask questions so that we can vote on things appropriately. And I feel like it's like, you know, we carve a path and then there's a hurdle, and then we carve a path and I don't understand that. We are the ultimate deciding people in this government, so we should have access to whatever information we need, however much time we need, and the ability to ask whatever questions we need. And if we need to do it together, or be able to ask the attorney or the borough administrator, you should be able to do that freely without there being any hindrance whatsoever.
And that's a council decision. It's not your decision. If the council decides. to
Actually,
do
it's
that-
already been decided for us by our form of government.
No, what I'm saying is, if we want to put a time limit on a open session, that would be a council decision, not your decision. There's no discussion. It's
I
a
didn't
vote.
ask to
I'm
decide on
just using that as an
anything.
example.
What are you
The
saying?
council can decide they want a session, 2 sessions a month, they want 1 session a month.
We did, we already voted on this, it's why it's on the agenda. And
No,
after
we didn't
whatever-
vote on
We
two
did,
agendas.
so you have both an attorney and a borough administrator that have gone back, looked at the meetings, I saw the emails, I saw the email from the attorney, I've spoken to Mike, I saw Mike's email. Both of them concur that there was no discussion about limiting this, and we voted on it without limit. Am I right in saying that you
Yes,
responded
I'm
to
not aware
that?
of anyone.
There was no limit, and it was voted on, so
But
I'm
the
not
changes
sure
can be
why
made.
there's a
But
problem.
changes, I've had other council people come to me wanting to make changes. And they will make them, yes, they will.
And it seems like you're pushing for it, so if the other council people want to make the changes, how come no one else brought it up?
They haven't done it yet. If they want to, they will. I can't make them do it.
Okay, as far as asking for information, if we need to reach out to either the borough clerk or the borough administrator and ask for a copy of something or a document, we are able to do that as well. Okay, I have an email where a member, an employee was directed in writing in an email not to send me something I asked for.
As I said, it's best to go through the borough administrator, but, it's
I just want to make sure
I'm
we
not
have
aware of
something.
anything in the bylaws that would prohibit that.
And bylaws are very basic. Okay, any other discussion?
I'm sorry, what was that, Dave?
I said, I don't know that it's a good idea to employees or department heads without, at the very least, copy my line.
Okay, and the borough administrator that was once guided to not provide information to us too. So going forward, so that we're on the same page, the borough administrator provides us with any information that we ask for. Thank you.
I would recommend against having the borough administrator not provide you with information. You are the council. The borough administrator manages the town. It would make sense that you have open, free flow of communication forward.
Hoping we can move forward in a more positive direction now, with the council being able to operate as the council.
Any other discussion?
The only other thing I'll add, because it came up, is the discussion of ordinances on the first reading. Just be mindful that if you make a substantive change in the ordinance between the first and the second reading, that you have to essentially go back to start, and you start the process over again. So ideally, we'll be using the workshop session to work through any ordinances that may require discussion, so that we don't have to start and then restart again the next time. So
I
that
just
would
think-
be my only.
I just think the tree one, we needed to push
Well,
through so
we
fast.
did, we did.
Well,
That
sometimes there
one's
are
a
time,
little-
yes,
yeah.
sometimes there are time frames,
Yeah.
and we'll go back and address the
Yeah.
thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
I didn't know about what you brought up today, so
Yeah.
that's a new concern that I hadn't heard before. And I'm gonna go back just for a second to that. Is there an actual written list of things that could kill a tree? Is it actually listed?
I don't recall.
I
It
don't
is.
recall,
It
I don't
says-
recall seeing that.
It
Does it
is.
really?
It says, like, you know, trimming, I guess if you trim it too much, or mulch, yeah.
does
It
say?
says it in there. I
Okay.
read it.
All right. Okay,
Over trim a tree, it
Mhm.
will die, but
It happens.
okay. Workshop, tabled items. Motion to open the meeting for public comments.
Motion.
Second. Council President Devine, Councilman Cruz, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Anyone from the public like to address? Just step up. Paul, go ahead. He's pushing you forward.
Paul Holby, 120 Romaine. Just out of curiosity, Lincoln Avenue is going to be repaved, right? Long road, from where to where?
Well, we'll answer at the end. I'll get you that.
Oh, this route.
Okay, you want it on Lincoln Ave, you said though, right?
Yeah, Lincoln, because I know it's going to extend around.
Yep, okay. Go ahead, now you may go.
Brian Gosker, 5 Car Street, with the commitment of Councilwoman Polidori tonight. It is awesome that everybody on the mayor and council will be at the Walk for Hope on Saturday. It really is a show of community support for mental health, which is a huge issue, is a continuing issue, not only through the adults in town and everybody, but our students as well. We're having a huge turnout from the high school as well, so I want to thank everybody in advance for being there. And I also just want to thank the council for approving Dr. P to be my assistant a couple months ago. He's been nothing but a pleasure to the office and an asset for not only my office, but I hope for the town as well. So thank you guys for that, and thank you, and I hope to see you all Saturday. Should be a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the council? You had your hand up? Did you? Step up. No one behind you.
Nobody behind? Randy Hitton, 443 Montclair Avenue. In the discussion you just had in the workshop, talking about ordinances brought up for the first time, from the public's viewpoint, mine, a lot of times, just like ordinance 2424, it says revising the organizational structure of the police department. Now, me as a resident listening to this, I have a question. What structure are you reorganizing? A lot of times at the second reading, you usually have the paper on the table, explains more about it, but then pretty much as a council, you've already made up your mind by the second reading because you're going to vote that. And so the public I'm caught off guard as to what kind of organizational structure of the police department are you talking about? So by the time it's on the table and I can read it, and if I still have a question on it, you've pretty much already made up your minds whether you're voting for it or against it. So from the public's viewpoint, my viewpoint, that's a little confusing. I mean, when it first brought up, can we have a little more, I can ask at this podium for you to explain it better, but initially people on TV can't ask that, so they don't know really what's going on with it. So if you can talk about what kind of organizational structure you're changing with the police department, I'd appreciate that. Also, when the administrator was talking about the new shade tree ordinance, we're still under chapter 12, correct? And in chapter 12, the fine is $500. Or I think it actually says 90 days in prison. So I don't think you're gonna put anybody in prison for doing a tree. But this was all set up for borough right-of-way trees, not for private property trees. And I have 2 incidences in town where the same contractor took down 2 borough trees. Now, that's destroying borough property when you come right down to it. I would still have to talk with Michael as to what we want to do about those 2 incidents. But you're not talking about the contractor. The contractor is the professional himself. He should know the laws. He should know the laws from all various towns. So this contractor was the same contractor that took down 2 borough trees. You're not talking about finding the contractor, which you should. He's the professional. The property owner is not the professional. One of the incidences was on Olive Avenue. I went to 167 Olive to look at a tree placement, the councilman's father's house, which has nothing to do with anything. He's a resident, he gets a tree if he wants one. But while I was there, I noticed the tree guy. Okay, what happened to it? So I got my tax map out, I looked at it. This was a borough tree. And it was taken down by this same contractor that took down the previous one. Now, I'd have to sit with Michael and we'll talk about what we want to do about this contractor, but he is the paid professional. he should know. He says to me that the property owner said that it was her tree. The property owner doesn't know. On this part of Olive Avenue where ex-father lives, there's no sidewalks. This thing was 5 feet from the road, or less. And when I rode by, it was just a pile of wood chips. So Google Earth shows the tree, and he says, well, it was dying. That's not his decision. Even though he's the professional, he's probably certified arborist, which I'm not. But he took down a borough tree. And through what you're talking about, hiring now a professional to do private property, like the attorney said, this man is a professional, makes you kind of wonder what Mr. Hinton has been doing for 13 years as no professional.
I ask that question every day.
And what was your answer?
I never got one.
You haven't got one yet, 13 years? Unpaid, I've been doing this for the borough right away and the park for 13 years. And I do know what I'm talking about a little bit.
I'm sure you do.
But anyway, when he was talking about the prices for the arborists, you're talking about $75 to $100 per hour. Put that in there also. So contemplate finding the contractor. He is the paid professional as opposed to the property owner. $500 is what it is right now, so come up with what you want. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public like to address? Seeing no one, motion to close the public session.
Motion.
Councilman
Second.
Bowman, Councilwoman Kilburg, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Lincoln Ave, we haven't gotten to that process yet to discuss what we're gonna do, but, Michael, you have any information you wanna add to Lincoln? There's not much we can really add.
Yeah, I guess I'll add the project limits are from Riverdale Road to Lakeside Ave.
Okay, that's really where we are so far. We don't have much more. Yes, thank you about that. Well, we're excited to come down in March. I hear you got a good turnout. Just, I want to verify the time so everybody hears it again. 10 o'clock at the high school. We'll be marching down to Hirschfield, turning around and coming back to the high school. Is that correct?
On-site registration starts at 10 a.m. Opening ceremonies will be around 11 o'clock. We have 2 veterans speaking, and then we will start walking just about 11:15 from the high school to Original Park and back.
Okay, and they should register online, but they don't have to.
That's correct. You can register day of. Let's make it easier on our registration folks. We ask you, please pre-register.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hinton, the second reading. I really don't have much to add to that because that's the process that we have in place right now. If you'd like to add that.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to note that new to this borough recently, all the ordinances are posted in advance on our website in the packet. So the public has advanced opportunity to review pending ordinances in the packet a few days before the meeting, as opposed to past practice where it was here at time of meeting and posted in the newspaper, obviously in accordance with state statute. But again, all the ordinances are posted in the packet that are on our website in advance of the meeting.
So if they wanted to, they could look that up, find some information, ask their question in an open session, 1 or 2, about the concerns they have.
Yes, and also just wanted to add that, while it's the intent to make most of our decisions during workshop, some are made in closed session. So you just have to keep that in mind.
Right. The contractor, you bring up a very good point. I don't know how to address that either. I mean, I don't know how we can enforce any enforcement on a contractor. I don't know, can we?
We'll talk to the attorney.
Yeah, I mean, if you bring up a good point in that, are they the expert? I mean, if somebody comes in and says, are they relying on their professional? In other words, when they say that tree's not in the right of way, obviously, it's a conspiracy. Obviously, nobody knows if that tree's in the right of way, who lives there. The professional maybe should be looking at a tax map, in my opinion, but doesn't have to. But I guess that's something to talk about. So what you're telling us is the on-site for borough trees, it's a $500 maximum fee. That's where I was, but I have no issue with the 1,000 too, so that's fine with me. Okay, motion to close the public session. Oh, I did that already.
Mr. Mayor,
You and I can't talk now.
I understand, but the property owner ordered no from his survey.
You're right, okay. Approach of the floor. Anybody approach the floor? Nope.
Oh, I just have one question. It's old business, though, is that okay? So I was just curious if you had a chance, if the engineer had a chance to visit the 527 Lincoln Avenue regarding the work that was done on the curb that
Yes.
left all its
Good
good.
point.
I just wanted to bring that up. And the second thing, which is long overdue, the flashing stop signs that was supposed to be put in for Lakeside. Remember, we had discussed that, it's a little bit old. Kind of told the Board of Ed, and nothing's happened. It's probably close to a year right now.
Are we talking about at Romania?
No, well, it's been a while.
All right, Mike.
Lakeside and Van, Mayor, right?
Lakeside and Van, I think, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and I know that was mentioned, that was something that was gonna be done. So those are the two. Sorry, I know one is really old, but.
Thank you. So for the flashing beacons and stop signs at the school, it was included in the municipal budget, which was only adopted in April. So we'll get moving on that as quickly as possible. And then for 527 Lincoln, after the site visit we had for the flooding issue, we went over to the property owner's house, and we did note that there was debris and rocks on the property. We couldn't find necessarily evidence of buried asphalt, but from what I'm told from the borough engineer is before they pave, we're gonna have the street sweeper come in, we're gonna clean up all the debris, and then when we did the concrete work in the fall, it really wasn't the best time to soil and seed. So we're gonna redo it this time around, given its optimal conditions for growing season. So we should see an area that's nicely cleaned up after the project.
Thank you, Michael.
Now, we've had issues before where I think it was written into the agreements that they had to come back and seed in the spring. Is that still written into most of our agreements?
It depends on the bid
Yeah,
specification.
because that's something we should do, especially if they're doing fall work. Because even by my house, the grass all died because it was late, and then they did come back in spring.
Okay.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second. Hold on.
Closed session.
Oh, yeah, closed session, sorry. Motion to adjourn to closed session.
Mr. Mayor, you didn't explain
Go ahead.
that ordinance of the.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
of the
I'm sorry.
structure of
Michael,
the police department.
give him a breakdown of the police.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So the governing body is considering some promotional advancements within the police department and a restructuring plan that was approved in a closed session.
Okay, motion to go into closed session. Thanks.
So moved.
Councilwoman Kilberg. Second. Councilwoman Kilberg. All in favor?
All right.
Again? Door's not open, but in closed session, we discussed 3 personnel matters. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Council President Devine, Councilman Cruz. All in favor? Against? Thanks.
I'll be less than a quarter mile away from it.